This is a Play Your Way Network presentation. Get the full story at PlayLifeYourWay.com. In a world where comics, movies, games, rumors, and Kardashians come at you 24/7, three champions will rise to defend you from wasting precious time, money, and emojis. BK, Nate, and Derreck will show you how to do it the player way.
Ladies and gentlemen and everyone in between, with all due respect, it's on once again, Patron once again. This is your resident podcast, DJ BK, helping you understand how to curate your life and media
the player way.
And I never do this thing alone. I'm here with my purveyors of punishment, my superheroes of Satchmo. You don't know no damn Satchmo. My co-captains, Derreck.
Y'all know who it is. It's Corrupting the System live and mixed color.
I like that. And Nate.
That's me, in a slightly yellowish tint.
Nice. And, of course, always the dark chocolate, somewhere halfway between milk chocolate and the caramel center and the darkness. You got this nice premium blend roast, otherwise known as BK. Yeah, twin brother darknesses. And we are back another week, getting ever closer. It is episode 44, VIX 44, getting ready to get on down to episode 50. Guys, we're almost there. Can y'all believe it?
I cannot. I cannot believe it, but mostly I can believe it because, you know, you're a good purveyor of hard work and gumption and consistency, and you just bring it to the table. You just always be coming with the crack. Pause.
Always
with
get
that.
it.
And when you come with the crack, you know we're gonna have a good highs, and we're gonna have some down lows, but we ain't never gonna leave you fiending because BK is always dreaming and scheming, if you know what I'm meaning. And word on the street is Dollar Dirk Dallas was giving some financial advice to people today. And he was telling them that he needed to save some pennies and he could turn it into $1 million. They walked off. They didn't believe it. I'm not saying I am him. I'm just saying I haven't seen us in the same room.
Man, you got so many damn coins on that. On you know, flattery will get you everywhere. You did so much there. I mean, you ended up getting some one-ups there, man. That's what's up, man. Well, I appreciate all of those compliments, giving us the 100% exclusive every single week.
Exclusive. The player way.
Exclusive brotherly adulation.
Adulation, dude. We miss you, man. It was such an awesome week, man. But I have to say, you know, I'm glad that you're coming out here, in like 3-day bursts, because I'm telling you,
it's a lot.
I'm going to say something that's kind of questionable, but it is applicable. My rectum can't handle longer trips of you here because after all of those captain challenges, it was great to finally have a bowel movement that was not spice induced.
This is not searing.
It was not searing, dude. Man, I had scabs on the inside of my lips. That's the reason why, you know, we did like 3 captain challenges. In the last couple...
In succession.
Yeah, in the last couple in succession.
The day after.
Yeah, the last couple in succession, Derreck was like, why is this so hot to you when we got off camera? And I'm like, wasn't it hot to you? And it wasn't until like the day after he left that like Rachel noticed there was like scabs on the inside of my lip from like eating so much. What it was that Buffalo Wild Wings.
I bet.
Yeah, what it was is, and when you watch the video, you can tell I burned myself.
When you say a video and Buffalo Wild Wings, and you're talking about Captain's Challenges, it makes me think: is there some place that people who may be living under a rock with their fingers in their ears would be able to see sort of sorcery in this video?
Well, you already know, brother. They can always.
I already know.
They can always get the exclusives.
Exclusive. The player way.
Exclusive. At PlayLifeYourWay.com, part of the Play Your Way Network. We have all kinds of entertainment for people who like the kinds of stuff that we like. You can get the audio content, the podcast, whether it be the podcast from us or the podcast from Weekly Games Chat. Shout out to Chris, Sean, and John doing their thing on a week-to-week basis. You also got if you're more into the mini content, you don't want to watch full shows or listen to full podcasts, you can go on our IG, go to @PlayerWay Podcast on Instagram, and I even saw that at Corrupting the System is using some of those techniques he learned here in Atlanta, Georgia. So yeah, so you're getting a little content going on over there on Instagram as well, huh?
Absolutely, you sure can. And of course, if you're looking for full length, filling up your whole screen HD girth, we all can head on over, of course, to our YouTube channel,
exactly,
titled The Player Way Podcast, and you can definitely see most recently BK and Corrupting the System burning their faces off with them Blazing Wing Challenge, which is what your resident podcast DJ is talking about, where he got them blisters and actual wounds from this.
And when you're watching the video, you can actually see at a certain point where I let it burn my mouth, and I let it sit in my mouth because it burned. It burned, like I could feel and I even say in the video, I might have turned down the audio for that portion so that we didn't get any trouble from licensed music. But I said it's not so much the spice as much as it's the heat, and it's the heat mixed with the spice at the same time that made it really difficult. So yeah, I burned my lips really, really bad. And I would now it makes me feel really silly for like taking some of those spices that you came in here and you're like, it's not that hot. Maybe it wasn't that hot. Maybe that's what it was. So anyway, still entertaining Captain's Challenges that you can get in on, and we got other content coming every single day. If you don't want to have to keep up with all of the different places that you can get our stuff, just go to playlifeyourway.com. That is the Play Your Way Network. Even you can go to playyourwaynetwork.com as well. And pretty much every single day we have some sort of trademarked content. We got Motivation Monday, where you'll either get something from Captain Mike Robertson on his trek to greatness, or you'll get something from me from the State of Play. We're even working on something with Jay Daniel. He's working on a season of The Dreamer's Blueprint. That's information for people who are trying to do their career their way. Tomorrow, you're going to actually get an article from me. You'll get something from Jay Daniel as well that's about the marathon coming out for the MCU that AMC is doing. And we're even talking about possibly doing a challenge, so stay tuned on this podcast to hear how you could possibly win some awesome swag, maybe even some Kid Ash, just for sitting in a chair and watching MCU movies in succession. So keep listening to that. So our podcast comes out on Tuesday. Tomorrow evening, after the podcast comes out, you're going to get an article from me called Outdoors, the Player Way. It's got several different clips that came out on YouTube. It's going to be all in one article about how to cook in wildlife, but also do it
the Player Way.
Exactly. And then on Wednesday is Weekly Games Wednesday. All kinds of games articles from Jonathan and Ian Robert Parsons. But then we also got Weekly Games Chat that is on our site as well. Thursday, we tend to do deep dives, so there's more articles and more content on that day. And then, of course, we got Flame on Fridays, which is where we do the Captain's Challenge. So all kinds of amazing content that you can see us happening every single week, and we will always do it
the Player Way.
So there you go. That's enough of the commercials. Guys, how your week been?
Man, it's been crazy. Nate is about to tell us how awesome his week has been.
I should have just said Nate, because the truth is, Nate knows Derreck and I were together. So,
my week's been good. I did do a bunch of stuff, but honestly, none of it matters because the Infinity War trailer dropped, and I've probably seen it at least 75 times since.
I've limited my views of it.
I tried. I can't help it.
I'm running a social experiment with regards to the Infinity War trailer, where my social experiment for only Corrupting the System is I'm only watched the first trailer for Infinity War ever, and I have to socially juke out any way to see anything else about it up until seeing the movie. So that's my mission impossible.
So Derreck, just want to make sure before I dish, you have seen the trailer enough times to talk about it, right?
I've seen the original trailer.
seen this
Yes,
new one?
I've watched that one. I have not seen the one that dropped because I just,
All right,
like I
then
said, I have
need
to do
you
this for
possibly
myself.
to get off the headphones for a
Do I
second
need-
because
do I need
we
to
got
plug my
some.
earphones?
The player.
Oh, exclusive.
So go
Hit me
ahead.
2 times.
Yeah, go ahead and turn it off, and we'll give you a high sign. We'll do something like this when it's time to come back.
All right, sounds good.
All right, Nate.
Yes.
So why do I get the feeling that we're going to be saying at the end of all of this, shit, Steve Rogers got it the worst.
That him catching the gauntlet. I don't know if you remember, but a while back I had texted you guys the comic panel of like just the showdown between Thanos and Cap.
You said,
I
I
was
just
like,
want to
this is
see
all
this.
I want to see. Yes, and I am so hoping that's it. You know, like Rogers is the last one standing, and
that's where the movie ends, maybe.
I know. Honestly, I think the movie will end with a snap, like Gamora said. I think, to me, that would be the best ending. And then roll credits all the way at the end. Avengers will return in Secret Wars. That's what I'm hoping and what I'm.
What would be a really cool after credit scene is if we see him snap and then does the credits, and then at the very end of the credits, you see that mountain of bodies that we got a clue of in the originals Avenger film. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, you mean in Age of Ultron? Like,
Oh yeah, that was Age of Ultron. Sorry,
Yeah.
Age of Ultron. Yes,
Yeah.
in Age of Ultron, that mountain of bodies. It would be cool to see that mountain of bodies. Like, oh crap! Like it happened.
Yeah.
It came true after all. Yeah, I got a feeling. Yeah, Cap is gonna get it the worst, and that's obvious. There's desperation in his face. Everybody thinks that like I'm seeing these memes come out like somehow like Steve Rogers is like, why does he even need the rest of the Avengers? Oh, you're gonna find out why. I mean, there are 2 jewels on that gauntlet.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's gonna get it the worst. I mean, they just basically let you know pretty much everybody's gonna die. So just get ready. Just get ready. Get your popcorn ready. Get your tears and Visine.
I really hope they don't release another trailer. Like, I want this to be it, sort of like the Star Wars marketing.
But another one's coming.
I don't know, man. I think they're so anti-spoil. Like, them moving this up a week just so there's no spoilers from the overseas opening. Like, that to me is they're just building the suspense, and they don't, almost anything released is probably spoiler territory. Like, there's a reason why Hawkeye isn't in any of the promo material. We know he's in the movie, but I think his mission would be, a spoiler or just even showing him what he's doing.
And I think the biggest reveal of all is Quill being there with the rest of the team. So we thought, at first we were thinking maybe the Guardians get there after everything is like destroyed. Mm-hmm. And then there's like a flashback. Like the movie starts with everything being destroyed and it's a flashback to what happened. No. It's, I mean, they may have even played a little trick with us thinking that Thor actually survived that little run-in with Thanos. He might have not have survived that little skull-crushing thing.
I mean, he has to. I think he does.
Man.
That's probably how he ends up meeting with the Guardians in the first place. I gotta imagine.
Do you think maybe the Guardians leave Earth or something like that at the very end to try to do something?
No. If I had to take a guess, I think it would start where Ragnarok ended. Where it's after. I think that was
with the scene with the Tesseract. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that Loki's going to turn his back on his brother once and for all.
I was kind of thinking about this. I don't know if you ever read Infinity Gauntlet, but Mephisto plays a pretty big role in that comic. You could easily have Loki
play the Mephisto part.
Mm-hmm. You know, the guy that tries to sway Thanos to do his bidding and stuff like that. And I think you could. And, I mean, he's a fan favorite. It's a good way to keep him around, too.
Speaking of fan favorite, I'm going to talk about somebody else I found out about this week that I've been obsessed with. But, all right, so I think we've talked enough about Avengers Infinity War. We won't do the predictions on the death count yet. When we get closer to the film, probably the episode right before, I think we need to do not only a gentleman's bet, but we're going to do a death count.
All right.
Now we're doing the high sign to get Derreck to come back, and he's not looking right now. There he is. He sees us. And there we go. He's back on now. what we were saying, Derek, is probably the last episode before Infinity War. We'll probably do not only a gentleman's bet, but we'll also probably do a death count list where each of us create a list of like the deaths that we think we'll do a total overall count, and then maybe do the on-screen deaths that we see, because there may even be some off-screen short work deaths. Like I fully expect Rhodey to get just blasted out of the air at one point.
Out of his wheelchair.
I mean, it's just
that he's hoping that
no,
Prince T'Challa
he's
gives him something to
he's
make
got
him
metal
walk.
legs.
I just
He's
got this
magic
suit.
legs.
I just got my legs back.
Got new ducks.
You got magic legs.
Exactly. You got magic legs, Lieutenant Dan. Exactly. So yeah, so that's what's going on there. Derek, so anything? Well, first of all, Nate, anything else you were up to other than being in bliss with Infinity War?
I mean, real quick, I did watch The Disaster Artist, which I enjoyed.
Oh man, I almost watched that with Derek last
so
week.
much so that I went and watched The Room, which I never saw before. Never wanted to. Oh, yeah, and I was thinking like I'm just gonna absolutely hate it, but after watching it, I was still laughing about it.
It's funny. It's a funny film.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be funny.
No, not at all.
But I mean, damn. What's cool about The Room was when you watch it, you realize films were kind of like that in that mid to late 90s period. There were some legit films that came out. There were a couple of Gerard Depardieu films that were similar to The Room.
Well, this was even earlier than that. I mean, it was 10 years ago when it came out.
Yeah. So,
what I couldn't stop laughing about is almost before every scene there was an exterior shot of San Francisco. You know how they do that in the movies to set up the audience that, okay, we're in San Francisco. But they never move from San Francisco throughout the whole movie. So it's like you have these set up exterior shots
establish
throughout the... Yeah.
Well, you could tell that, like, and that's the reason why I mentioned the late, like, the late 80s, early 90s. Obviously. But no, like the mid 90s, because a lot of the sensibility of that filmmaker, you can tell that he had watched a lot of stuff like from like the mid 90s. Even though this film came out at a different time, it was like a time capsule. It was like everything he had learned about film in the 90s, he put into this film. So like establishing shot, he was like, you got to have an establishing shot. So it was very much like a student film. When you watch it, it's like a group project that you would see in film school. Is what it looks like. Terrible acting, terrible writing, and what made it amazing is that these billboards just started popping up. Like somehow he had funding to make a legit film, and it still empowered people in a different way, because it empowered people to know that film was accessible again to regular people. Because I mean, you know, when George Lucas was doing it, back when he made American Graffiti, the film was like that. It was approachable. You could get in there, and then when, you know, the Ford Coppolas and, you know, and all of the different actors, Spielberg's, you know, they got out there, Ron Howard's, it's like it became an enclave.
Scorsese.
But he kind of signaled that regular people could matter in the business again. And so that's what's inspirational about the film.
He spent over $6 million making The Room 10 years ago. So you can imagine how good the Spawn movie is going to be with a $10 million budget.
Dude's about to, because of guys like you, the dude's about to make his bank on that film. Like, it was a cult following film. Now it's about to start making some money. And it's a terrible fucking film. It is
Watching
horrible.
The Disaster Artist did make me appreciate The Room a lot more than I probably would have.
It's definitely like a companion to go along with the film, and it helps you, like, even though it's a terrible film, and I still hate that, like, they're getting us, like, they got us to get to watch this film, you know, one way or another. But anyway, all right, Derek, what were you up to after you left Atlanta, B?
After I left Atlanta, of course, I delved into a new anime on Netflix, B, the beginning, the serial killer one. I've been kind of watching that one, but anime talk is all on the side because there's only one anime thing that matters from this weekend. And as you see on Corrupting the System posted on March 19th, my excitement of just seeing, when I say to call it a fight, I feel like it devolves from what I saw. I saw a light show. I saw an evolution of characters in a series that has been going on for over 30 years. I saw a tribute to the fans. I saw an amazing.
It was the final
animated show.
It was the wrap up that Dragon Ball Z never had.
Yes, that's what this. Yes, it was a very good resolution that made sense when I didn't really need to see a kid named Oob. And like, it's cool, yes, but I could have just read that story.
And it explained I never needed to meet him. Dragon Ball Z was all about, in the essence of why people who think Superman would win in a fight against Goku, why you should be a little bit more afraid. Because while Goku is an idiot, his fighting genius is subsumed into his body. As James Turner said, 2 words: Ultra Instinct.
Ultra Instinct.
Exactly.
And if this Ultra Instinct, I mean, it's just amazing. And even seeing Jiren finally be like, all right, you have some skill. And I mean, I would say whatever he had was at least tantamount to Ultra Instinct. His output was very similar. I'll say that. However, it was just amazing just to see the summation of what Goku really truly has always fought for. Yes, he loves to see a strong opponent, but he has always fought for his friends. You know, that's why I'm wearing this Dragon Ball Z shirt when he went up against the Ginyu Force, which was, and which led up to what this fight is with Jiren. I was telling Priscilla that this fight has had shades of Goku versus Frieza all over it, and just to see it all leading up to him, what I presume that he was about to dole out energy once more, just to see how they brought it to a crux of, oh, by the way, and now a lot of hope is gone right now. A lot of hope is gone because this weakened Jiren is still a god compared to Frieza and 17.
Yeah. And not only that, but not only that, it has shades of every single fight, even down to what's happening right now is exactly what happened. Side with Cell.
Not even that.
Not even that. What happened at the end of this episode is exactly what happened at the end of the Vegeta saga. Like, basically, he was just about to deal the death blow to Vegeta, and then all of the Kaioken came back on and had the recoil, and he was on the ground and couldn't move. This is exactly what's happening right here. And how
like I said, that's what I meant when I said it's paying off.
And how the reason why Vegeta lost wasn't because he was more powerful, it was because he was alone. His friend he had killed. He killed Nappa. He didn't have any assist. If he had an assist, he could have had. So now what they're showing us, just like with Yajirobe, anybody can do what Jiren in now. And I love that. What I love about this is in a world where we all are very big anime fans, anyone who watches this is an anime fan. If you're watching it the day it comes out, 2 things happen in this episode, especially if you're an American fan, you got a payoff for. The first thing that was a payoff is there was an issue that happened in the American translation of what Frieza asked Goku. Frieza is like, how are you still, who are you? What are you? How do you have this much power? And Goku in the American version says, friend to justice, enemy to you. And that was a big deal because Akira Toriyama and everyone who was a part of Toei Animation was like, no, that is not what Goku stands for. He does not stand for justice. And specifically, they go back to that line when him and Jiren are fighting, and he specifically says, I don't know anything about justice, but I protect my friends. And that's what it was about. So that was specifically a nod to American fans. Nice. That was an Easter egg there. If you didn't already know about that, you just got the exclusive.
The player way.
And exclusive. The second payoff was that in a world where we thought we understood what was going on, we thought we understood the rules of anime, 17 is still alive. Still alive after a No one predicted that. Not one single person was like, who's to say that 17 actually sacrificed
17
himself?
Is dead.
Yeah. And they even gave us a hint with Vegeta, because Vegeta sacrificed himself, but
came back.
Didn't turn into stone this time. So that was the hint. So that was the Easter egg to all of us that 17 was going to live. And, of course, Golden Frieza, probably my favorite character in Dragon Ball Super, period, is Golden Frieza, and he's still there. And so I have no doubt that the guys are going to do okay. And
they just need to hold him off. Yes. They just need to outlast him just enough. But it's a tall order.
It is.
I mean, like I said, a weakened Jiren is still a very powerful foe. and Frieza was nothing to even his lesser. So this ought to be interesting, and man, it's just incredible. It's such a payoff to something that I've been watching since I was a kid, and it's just really just everything how you get that feeling. You're getting that feeling that the curtain's going to be drawn. Yep. You're getting that feeling, and it's a sad feeling. I'm not going to lie, but I believe that there are always some Dragon Balls out there that can resurrect anyone from the dead. And as you've taught me from my Naruto experience, N-E-R-D, my friend, N-E-R-D.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. I like that. Well, that's what's up. My weekend, how everything go with my weekend. I went out into the wilderness. I also got me this baller new cap, which you obviously can't see out there in TV land, or out there in audio podcast land. But I'll basically it's a nice baseball snapback version of Trafalgar Law's Heart Pirates cap, along with his spotted white leopard print. So if you're an anime fan, BK is doing his caps
the player way.
Nate was drooling over that thing. I could see him over
and
there.
Derek, I don't know if I did that preview right. I don't think I don't think I specifically said the anime it comes from. Do you know what anime it comes from?
You did not. I would only guess here. If I'll take a wild guess. Okay. Does it involve? Is it One Piece?
One Piece, exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
Right.
Good
all
job.
right. See,
One Piece is one of those animes.
I don't think I would have got it if I didn't watch animes. But
I gave you one little hint,
like,
and I said
the pirate.
That's it.
The pirate. I was like, it has to be One Piece.
Yeah. So One Piece is. I was talking to Rachel about it today. She was like, "So what is One Piece?" And I was like, "One Piece might be the longest running anime of all time." Like, I mean. And what I mean by that is it dwarfs any other anime in terms of both manga episodes and manga issues and actual animated episodes. So I don't even think Dragon Ball Z comes even close, even though it has a longer span of time than One Piece. One Piece has been the number one anime forever, and it's one of those.
And
things
it's just that one.
And the thing about it is,
like Naruto, you can group Naruto and group Boruto, but single, man,
and it's out there. It's out there. One Piece, it's got all of the stuff that you want from a shonen anime, but then it goes into like the silly stuff. Like if you took Naruto, Hunter versus Hunter, Dragon Ball Z, and Toriko, and put all of those together in one anime with a little bit of Yu Yu Hakusho, and that's One Piece. So it's like it's too much.
And those guys actually exist in that world, don't they?
Well, there have been. I won't say that. What I will say is that
because I've seen Toriko has had Luffy on
there
his
have been
show.
crossovers. I wouldn't say they're in the same universe. But so. Toriko, Goku, and Luffy have all had like a crossover episode with all three of them on screen.
They had an eating contest or something.
It was like a big contest type of thing. Yes, it was it was like a marathon type of deal. And then there's also been video games in Japan that have like Naruto and all of the Shonen Jump characters in like one video game too, like a fighting game, which is epic to watch. But anyway, so I got that cap, which I'm happy about. I got some other stuff coming in town soon. And then went out of town with Rachel, had some outdoorsiness to get our springtime kicked off. And when I got back in town, we ended up going out and seeing... along with James and Mark, shout out to James and Mark, we saw Tomb Raider, which brings us to the next section of our podcast. So, ended up watching that. You guys didn't get to see that, right?
I did not.
Okay, cool. All right.
It's on the to-do list, though.
No, it's all good. I would skip it. You don't need to see it in theaters. It did. If anybody's got the box office numbers, get ahead and get those ready because we'll talk about
23 million.
Yeah, go ahead.
633,317. Number two,
behind
once
Black
again, this
Panther.
weekend was debowed by Black Panther.
And then third place was Wrinkle the Timer.
Surprise. Yeah, I can only imagine actually beat out A Wrinkle in Time.
That's crazy.
17-1 versus 16-2. So the drop-off for Wrinkle in Time was almost right where we predicted at 50%. And then, of course, Tomb Raider comes in a little higher than 20.
What is Black Panther at?
But I can only imagine being a very shocking 17 million. First of all, which actually was what brought Black Panther even probably down to
What is
26 million. I'm sure a lot of those same fans were
what is it at collectively for domestic Black Panther?
Black Panther or
Black Panther.
Yeah, Black Panther.
600 million domestic.
Man.
That's
600
50 million
domestic.
away from beating the worldwide take for Justice League.
Well, it's at 605. It's at 605
Yeah.
right now. Worldwide,
It's probably going to hit
1.185.
domestically what Justice League hit worldwide.
That's crazy. That is
crazy.
Insane. That is insane.
Yeah.
And what's crazy, it's domestic and foreign numbers are almost running like its domestic numbers are ahead of the foreign just barely 25 million. That's nominal at these levels.
Yeah,
That's
and
Ryan Coogler.
yeah, and
I'm gonna have to add his pineapple.
And at the busiest theaters here in Atlanta on a Sunday afternoon that would have a lot more issues getting tickets, I was able to bring 4 different people who had 4 different movie pass accounts, and we were all able to walk up literally 5 minutes before the film and all get our seats together. So that lets you know that while people were watching Tomb Raider, it wasn't like a burst of it's a nice. I like when the box office has variety. There's a lot of variety of different things to watch. Everybody's making a little bit of money, and everybody's happy. Tomb Raider. Here's my review of Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider reminds you of the issues with an outdated, and I'm going to say outdated, but action as a genre, as opposed to being a collection of different genres. See, action is almost now an aspect of different films as opposed to being a genre. Back in the day...
Oh, this is a thriller horror action
It
film.
used to be action had its own thing. Like The Last Action Hero, there was nothing else about that film other than it was an action film. And action heroes being the titular part of what makes an action film work. Tomb Raider signifies that the issue and what you have to do in order to make an action film work in the 21st century. And 2, what it does is it shows the weaknesses of filmmakers as a whole. You want to know how The Mummy happens. You want to know how Justice League happens. You want to know how all of these major films, Valerian, that are supposed to have their own thing, John Carter of Mars, all these films that have so much promise, have great stories. Every one of those films I just mentioned have great stories. I'm going to say this again. Every single one of those films I just mentioned have great stories. Okay? So if you're Karan Nanja and you're the Nice Cast, I admit, every DC film that we've seen has a great story to it. However, too many filmmakers are film students and not filmmakers nowadays. Okay? And what I mean by that is you got a lot of people who watched a lot of film when they were younger. They are implementing things that they've seen done, not too different from our friend who made The Room, but they just have bigger budgets. And so they go out here and they just put junk in a film. But what you got to do is there aren't too many people like George Lucas anymore who really is taking it all to himself. You could even make an argument that George Lucas's career teetered off when he stopped doing it himself. When he started letting people come in and he started kind of quote-unquote borrowing ideas, much in the same way that Kanye West has a whole studio full of artists and that's how he makes albums now, it's the reason why his work isn't as good anymore. If you are an artist, you need to have something to say. Take risks. Get out there. Don't sit in and be in committee. Don't sit in and ask opinions about. Get out there, be an artist, take risk, and just get the work done. And do it yourself. Because when you do it yourself like Ryan Coogler does, then no one can take credit for it. Okay? So, here's what happens in Tomb Raider. First of all,
you can tell me what happened to Tomb Raider in a second. That was not just exclusive, director, that was just great life advice.
Well,
just
I
now.
mean,
If you are an artist, make sure you have the wherewithal to know.
You got people out here who are trying to make films, but they won't just make the goddamn film. Stop.
That's the thing.
Stop. Look, where are my directors who are going to say the studio's not going to make this film? either you're going to let me do the film or we're not going to do it at all. I truly believe that that's why Ben Affleck stepped away from the Batman. I'm not going to let a studio make a film because that's why the studios are screwing up. All the studio was ever supposed to be is a checkbook. That's it. You are a bank. You're a real estate company to give actors and give thespians and give producers the ability to produce work and collaborate. Get out of the way and let us do what we got to do. That's it. That's it. And Marvel Studios, it's obvious that that's what they do for better or worse because they've had some stuff that doesn't work so good.
Pop movies.
Yeah, but they hire directors that have shown that they can handle the pressure. And they let them do their work for better or worse. And somehow it still works. Even with Iron Man 3, that is on the bottom of the list for most people, it still works. It still works as a film. I hate to admit that because I hated that film when I saw it.
Man, I was so upset.
It works. Like when you see the tapestry as a whole, it works. Even if you go back and watch The Incredible Hulk, it's so different from Iron Man, but it works. But it works though. Like all of these films do work together. So my point is Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider does this thing where the guy that they have playing her dad, really good actor. He plays like the lead character on The Affair on Showtime. If you ever seen that, really good actor. Tomb Raider. This version of Tomb Raider is definitely very British. I mean, it's they are not trying to put it in America or have American actors in it. It's a full British cast for the most part. So it has that sensibility, which can be a bit of a roadblock for Americans as an on-ramp. The humor.
Is it Dominic West?
Dominic West, yeah, that's him.
McNulty.
Yeah, exactly. That's him from The Wire, exactly.
Yeah.
Nice.
So my thing with Tomb Raider is they have her dad do like this opening monologue that he ends up doing later in the film. But when he does it later in the film, he does it word for word, but there's better B-roll with it. So it means what was the point of doing it right before the movie started? So that you got that. So that takes up the first 2 or 3 minutes of this prologue that they're going to rehash later on and do it better in the middle of the film. Then there's this, it opens with an MMA fight between Lara Croft and some butch lady. And the butch lady kicks the shit out of Lara Croft in the opening of the film. And chokes her out to where Lara Croft has to tap out. So, by the way, this is a spoiler cast. This is a spoiler cast, so don't listen if you don't want to be spoiled. But it'll be in the title, so anyway. So from there on, if anyone gets her in a chokehold for the rest of the film that is twice her size, you're reminded that someone who was her exact weight class choked the shit out of her, and she didn't know how to respond in an MMA battle with that. So, foreshadowing heavily. Then
fast forward.
Then you find out.
The Rock choking
then you
her.
find out she's got money issues, so she can barely pay for her, not her rent, but like her dues to be at the, kind of like the beginning of Rocky, where you find out his stuff has been put out on Skid Row, and Mickey's kind of kicking him out. She has almost that exact same thing happens to her. I'm like, okay, well, if anybody's seen Rocky, you know what this is. Okay, I don't know why we're in an MMA gym. And on top of that, we got a prologue that has nothing to do with the opening scene. So that's a waste of time. So those are 2 scenes. Then she goes to work because she's a courier. So she goes to work and she's talking with, like, there's this group of people that they have a conversation. And they're talking about this thing that they want to do. And she kind of leaves and then she goes and delivers something. And she runs into this, like, Indian guy that he seems to have a crush on her. And his parents are like, go ahead and ask her. But he's like afraid to ask her out. And then like they kind of have a moment where they talk and they look at each other and then she goes off. This guy, you don't see ever again in the film. So they waste that time on this character that you never see again. And she never even has a romantic thing with him ever again. So there's 3 scenes. Then she comes back to the courier place and then they decide they're going to have like this race. They're just trying to find like somebody who's stupid enough to be the rabbit that they have to chase. And Lara's like, how much money do I win if I get to do it? So 5 scenes they have before when the film should have started. Rachel and I are watching the film and we go, this is where the film should have started. Opening scene, no prologue, just she pokes a hole in this green paint can, and then she's on her bike and she's going and being chased, and it shows her that she can parkour and she knows how to get away from people, and she's smart, and then she runs into a police car.
So you're telling me it doesn't show her broke, getting kicked out, getting her ass kicked? It established her as a better character if it had started there?
Well, what they do is they establish her as somebody who's broke, but then you find out when she gets bailed out of jail within like the next 5 or 6 minutes that she actually is an inheritance and grew up in a manor. So she's not broke. She's just got this fake lifestyle where she doesn't want people to know she has money, but then it has no consequence ever again. None of the people she interacts with in these opening scenes, you never see any of these people ever again. She leaves this country and never comes back. Okay?
The director
so
owes
it's
somebody
like,
some
it's
favors.
so much junk. It's so much exposition. It's so much BS. And there's several different scenes where, like, when she gets bailed out of prison or out of jail after this little accident she has at the beginning, and the lady's like, "You haven't seen your father since 7 years." And like, I don't need the exposition. Like, we don't need it. Does it really matter that it's been 7 years exactly? Like, no, we don't need to know all this.
All right, I have a serious question for you here. So, is this movie going to be number 2 or 4 on your top?
I know, right? Exactly. What happens is they end up cutting off any credibility that Lara Croft has as a character at the very beginning of the movie. She makes a lot of really dumb rookie mistakes, and for her to be this Indiana Jones, because the film later is good and it's almost exactly like Temple of Doom, but it's like, how did she do these things? She admits she never went to university, so she has no training on hieroglyphs or any of this stuff like that. Where she has the ability to pick up an M16 and chop people down, she chooses to become Katniss Everdeen and go for the bow and arrow instead, which makes no sense. And then it would make sense if that's what she did, but then she has a moment at the very end of the film where she's like, "Oh, I like twin guns." Then why didn't you use twin guns in the jungle then? Like, what's going on? So it's better than all of the other Tomb Raider films.
It's a video game
which
movie.
Isn't saying much. But, yeah, video game films still got a long way to go. Video game films, you would think with all of the stuff going on with comic book films, video game films would have learned something. They ain't learned nothing yet. I mean, it's just a lot of exposition. She's even smaller than Angelina Jolie. So you don't believe her when she's beating people up and choking them out and stuff. It's just my advice to Hollywood. My advice to you guys is, if you're going to make a film with a female character as a lead, you don't have to make the last battle a physical fight. If she's this master at overcoming these tombs like Indiana Jones does in Raiders of the Lost Ark or something like that, use the temple against these guys. They don't have to fight, because in real life, someone who weighs twice as much as you can't beat them no matter what you do. I have high blood pressure, I'm fat as hell, and I am out of shape. But I guarantee you, if somebody half my size comes up and tries to whip me, they ain't gonna be able to do it. It ain't gonna happen because of physics.
Not up in here.
Because of physics. Not because I'm so awesome, but if you hit me, my body absorbs shock better than yours does. My mass will not move the way yours will. It's like trying to hit a brick wall. It won't happen. It ain't gonna happen. So
not up in here, not
here.
now,
And
not
not
ever.
with a bow and arrow versus guns. Knife in a gunfight. Come on, man. Get out of here. So
you brought stick to it.
So yeah, so I wouldn't spend money to go see this in theater, to be honest with you. If you skip it, you're definitely saving that money.
The Player Way.
Any questions you guys have about this film?
Nope.
So it's clear you're number 4.
Exactly. Yeah, it was disappointing. I was expecting better.
Fair enough.
Speaking of expecting better, Derek and I actually did go back and watch Jessica Jones. We couldn't make it through episode 1, bro.
Yeah.
It's terrible. It's fucking terrible. It's horrible. How could they take a show that worked so well season 1 and then they
It shows
decided
you
to
what
focus
worked
on
was Kilgrave. The villain is what made season one of.
Kilgrave,
and they focused on Jessica. Why are we talking about her sister? We don't care about her.
There's no progression in terms of her character arc because she's still the fucking woe is me. My life is so dramatic.
With not a good villain.
Yeah, it's
a retcon.
At some point in time, what you got to do is you got to progress her character some way, somehow.
Especially
something
after
different.
her interacting with like Luke Cage and then being in the Defenders. Like she has some credibility now.
You know, but it's back to the same
my cheating boyfriend.
She decided to reopen Alias investigations because she believed in it again, and she hates it already.
Yeah.
I hate this. Hey, do you want a lot of money to do this? But
Malcolm, you're fired. You know that.
Fire me every day.
I think she says that about 60 different times.
Come on, man.
And it's just
the best part.
Is that a comic book reference? Did she do that a lot in the comics or something, Nate?
Wait, no, this
not at all.
Yeah.
Oh, it's nothing. I was like, maybe they're trying.
That's why
in comics, she ends up like marrying Luke Cage. They have a baby. You know, she's like she still is a reluctant hero, but she's not depressed like
Derreck,
she was.
That's the reason why I kept saying, like, why doesn't she call Luke? Like her arc is heading toward him. Like, so why not? Like, that's like, for example, that's like if they bring Wolverine and Storm over into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Storm is going to have a moment with T'Challa. He's going to have to. It's got to happen.
Period. The end.
It's on the way. So it's the same thing. It's like, why aren't we at least having a moment where they talk in the first episode? Like when she gets put in jail, her first call should have been to him, and he could have had a moment with her and was like, do you know what time it is? It's 3:00 in the morning. You can't be calling me like this. I got something going on over here. And he's talking to her, and she's like, well, I would think that you would come bail me out and come at least see me. It's like, you didn't come see me when I was in Atlanta in jail, and hang up on her. Like, it could have been something like that. Like, they kind of have some unresolved issues because of how she handled things with them. But it was just, there was no, even down to the Wizard, man, man.
How Marvel Speedster catch the pipes.
Yeah, man.
How are you gonna introduce a speedster to get hit by something that was just 3 feet above his head? How are you gonna introduce a speedster just to get?
Yeah, it was. What was the point? So a lot of things that weren't so great there at all. Well, moving on. This is kind of starting a bit of a discussion and is heading toward where we're eventually going to end up, because this episode we're going to talk about our top 5 action films. If you recall, if you've been watching every week, we are kind of running down our top 5 different type of genre films, all leading up to episode 50. Kind of a bit of an anthology series to kind of get you, kind of getting you warmed up, kind of getting you ready, if you will, a little prelude to the main attraction. A little,
that's right. And plus, people are getting to know us a little better.
A little opening dish, a little bit of, you can't just run on in there with it. Come on, help me out there, D.
Hey, man, so you can't just run up on them. Sometimes, I mean, I'm not saying you got to brush her hair out of her face, but sometimes you want to just, you gotta, hey, I see that there's a fragrance in the air. What's that? That's
too much hair in the thing. You need to shave it off. You know what I'm saying?
Shave
exactly. So anyway, we definitely gonna pass the Cavassier.
Why are you using my razors? Not my razors. You got your own razors. Mine aren't sharper than yours. Just use your own. Like, there ain't no point.
Exactly.
I don't want to see my Mach 3.
Exactly. So we definitely gonna run that thing down, and we're gonna get ready to get our top 5 action films of all time. But of all of these, as we mentioned earlier in this episode, what makes a great action film? Derek, in your opinion, what makes a great action film, man?
What makes a great action film for me? Whenever my body language, I watch my body language. Like if I'm leaning forward, if I'm actually engaged. Now I know that's not the normal person's reaction, but that's just, I start there. I use that as my baseline. But then when I'm looking at the screen, I've become more analytical of my action scenes as I've gotten older. However, I want to have engaging camera shots. I want to see nice explosions. I need to see a few fist fights, and I need to see some surprise. I want to see something that can only be seen in a movie. I want to see something that, nope, I can't go watch a stunt double do this jump. I want to see something crazy like, oh, you stole a Ferrari and now you're in Dubai, and then we had some parachutes and we landed the car. I want to see some Ghost Protocol. You know what I'm saying? I need that level of action in my
definitely
movies.
The rising and constant action, but it has to make sense.
Yeah.
It can't be the happenstance type of stuff that we talked about. It can't be. No. It's got to be a logical progression, even if there's a suspension of disbelief. It's got to make sense within the universe. For me, action sets up certain rules at the very beginning of the film. Things that, and it's all centered around that main character. You know what I'm saying? So, the biggest, best characters of all time. Let's take a Rocky, for example. Rocky, he's a loser to begin with. But how he makes his way in the world is through fighting. So we know the resolution of this film is going to be through some sort of fight. So same thing with Fast and Furious. We see some sort of car heist going on. We see a car chase always opening the beginning of the film. So we know somehow a car chase is going to be the resolution of this film. Bloodsport.
Absolutely.
Keep going. The Quest with Jean-Claude Van Damme. Time Cop. The opening scene kind of gives you an understanding of, like, this is a microcosm of what's going to happen at the very end. So imagine all of this happening, but it's going to blow up to this. This is why when I'm watching the opening of Tomb Raider, even though it's a video game-based film, it's an action film because it's an action game. Okay? The Square Enix game is action-based. So we need to open up with some sort of action scene that gives us the understanding of what we're going to end up with at the end of the film. So that's kind of where you're going to be heading toward.
Establish your baseline and foundation of action and stick to the rules that you created in your own
Indeed.
film.
Did we lose Nate somewhere along the way? Because he's been...
No, we didn't lose Nate. Nate's right up in
it. It's so weird. Yeah, his screen was solid on me for a quick second. Nate, what do you think makes a great action film?
Guns.
There you go.
Badass hero.
Tools.
An angry villain.
So tools all the way around. Tools are what make... I agree. The technology. So again, it goes back to what I said, that opening scene. So as we look through all of these...
Kung Fu
treachery. Exactly. So as we look at these top 5 films, and as you're playing along with us, you should be listening out to hearing if we held up our end of the bargain.
The Player Way.
So Nate, the always so effervescent co-captain, let's start with you, buddy. What is your number 5, along with any of your honorable mentions?
So I had 2 honorable mentions, which were Taken and Mission Impossible 3. I'm not going to go that much into them, but that's what they were. Number 5, I wanted to put higher on my list, but since it is a comic movie, I wanted to save it for this. But it is The Winter Soldier. To me, this is my personal favorite MCU movie. I think action-wise,
definitely.
Action-wise, yes, it sets up exactly what it is right from the beginning, with Cap running through the boat and just kung fu treachery against all the bad guys, all the little pirates. and it establishes him as a badass just right from the get-go in a way that we haven't seen in the prior 2 films that featured him.
And let me go back to something real quick. Something else that you just rose up, another criteria that you kind of shed light on. The hero is going to solve whatever the issue is with their own special brand of justice. So whatever their superpower is, whatever their physical ability, whether it be mental, physical, spiritual, whatever it is, take Steven Seagal, for example. Even though he's out there, his films were pretty good. But he stays honorable to the code that he is. Arnold Schwarzenegger, if he's playing a Terminator, whatever he lives and dies by is by those codes. Same thing with the Winter Soldier. Captain America, he wants to do so much more to affect the world. He wants to be able to change people from a morality standpoint because he has some very definite ideas of what the world should be like, but all he can do is hold a shield and fight. So what does he do? He fights his fucking ass off is what he does. When he's like chomping down on that ship and running along that ship and you get an understanding of how fast this dude really is, man.
Well, him just jumping out of the Quinjet with no parachute.
Yeah, dude.
But throughout this movie is probably some of the best fights, even still to this day, I think, for a Marvel movie, with the elevator scene.
Yeah.
Yes! And then even the one-on-one with him and Bucky. Like, basically, it's... Yeah, on it.
You get a real sense for what... Even though Captain America had only really been around since, like, through the not Civil War, but World War I or World War II. Was it World War II or World War I? World War II.
World War II.
Yeah, World War II. Sorry about that. You get a sense that he got so much training. Like, he got so much in that small period of time. The impact of living through an actual war where there were no superheroes except for him and there were no special tools. Like, it was just blood and bullets and bullpens. I mean...
Bubble and guts.
It was, dude. And you see the full extent of what Steve Rogers is about in The Winter Soldier. So, definitely... interesting that you had that on your list. We're going to keep it moving on just like that. Derek, number 5 in your honorable mentions.
All right, I have a handful of honorable mentions because this is hard for me because I've seen a lot of action movies and I'm like, oh, but I like this one, so I'm just going to run through them just like Nate did. I feel like I have to mention Speed because that was just an awesome action movie.
Speed,
you know what I mean?
Yes.
Just The Protector. Shout out to Ong Bak. Ronin, Face Off, Drive with Ryan Gosling. That was a sleeper to me. Crank, the remake of Running Scared in 2006, and also Collateral. 2 in the chest, 1 in the head. That was a badass movie.
Interesting about Running Scared, because Running Scared could have easily been on somebody's fantasy list if you really know what that film is about.
Best Paul Walker movie out there.
It is.
It really, man, it was
hands down.
And I don't know if you guys have ever seen the original, but it's a good. It's good. It's a good. That's what I'm going to go with. But my number 5 is a very. It's probably not on many people's list, but I remember when I watched this. To also answer your question, what makes a good action film is how tense are you through it? Like Independence Day, I was tense through that whole movie. This movie, it wasn't gigantic bullets. It wasn't gigantic fight scenes. It was a stressful but still an action-packed movie, and it was Apocalypto, Mel Gibson's directorial debut on that, and that movie was it was a mind fuck. Really,
I think his directorial debut was Braveheart.
I was just kidding. My bad. Thanks, Nate. His whatever or was it? What am I mixing up with? Passion? Whatever. It was Mel Gibson's directed. That's what I meant to say. His first movie about South America. His American directorial debut. But this movie was in essence one long. Hey man, call me out. Hold my feet to the fire.
Yeah, bro.
I don't mind that at all. Actually, I prefer it. But this movie is in essence one long chase scene. You were just knowing that there's some wild ass jungle people that are coming to get you, and it was really kind of terrifying. So that was my obscure number 5 in true corrupt in the system fashion in Mel Gibson's non-directorial debut.
That's what's up. All right, so my honorable mentions are basically going to be all of the old school stuff. We're definitely going to go back to
like Smokey and the Bandit style?
Not that far back. But we're going to go back to basically every one of the Lethal Weapon films. Lethal Weapon as a series is a really good. It's really good understanding of what it means to be an action film. I don't have any buddy cop films in my lineup, but definitely got to give kind of like a shout out to those action films. Lethal Weapon is one of those series that got better like as they kept going. In my opinion, I think the typification of what that series is about is when you end up with Joe Pesci and Chris Rock and Jet Li and Danny Glover and Mel Gibson all in the same film. These are great. Like, that was an amazing build up of as a series and what action films are all about. Also, big shout out to all the Schwarzenegger films. They have their place, but in my opinion, none of the Schwarzenegger action-based films are the better films, because he's not going to be in my top 5 either. Shout out to Schwarzenegger just out there, because you definitely...
Eraser was one of my favorite.
In your heyday, you did action
The Player Way.
So, with no further ado, and also, shout out to Bruce Willis as well. In my opinion, Bruce Willis was not all that great of an action star, but he has his place in action history.
Not that great? Have you seen Death Wish?
He's so stupid. Anyway, moving on. Number five action film. I made this my number 5 because when this film came out, it changed everything. It changed how action films and other films were even shot. It changed cinematography, it changed storytelling within an action genre, and it also showed that you can't just go out and fake being a martial arts expert like Schwarzenegger and other people used to. Steven Seagal, you realize, okay, maybe he's doing a little funny action when it comes to doing that. The guy who was the lead character in this one went on to do much greater films after this, action-wise. And so my number 5 is The Matrix. Yes.
I knew you had to download that Kung Fu sometimes.
Dude. Yeah. The reason why I didn't get higher on the list is because it was more heavily on the sci-fi and a lot of CGI, so there wasn't as many action scenes. But what makes it an amazing action...
But it still takes effort to do that wire work.
Yen Wu-Ping, I believe is what his name was, who did all of the choreography, fight choreography. No one had really been talking about fight choreography in that way before The Matrix. So, shout out to The Matrix. You did action.
The Player Way.
Nate, number 4.
Number 4 is a movie that I liked even more after moving to downtown Los Angeles, and it's Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx.
Such a good film.
Tom Cruise plays such a good
Nate
villain.
always become with the hurt bombs, dude.
Good
I'm like, man, that should have been on my
villain.
list.
This was on my honorable mention, and it was tough to just put it there.
And I love how Jamie Foxx doesn't play your typical hero. Like, even at the end where him and Vincent have the shootout, he has his eyes closed, and he basically hits Tom Cruise with sheer luck. It wasn't because he found...
He might be your typical hero,
exactly.
Actually.
Like, he's your everyman.
That's the real life. Yes.
Which is what's great about this. And Tom Cruise, I wish he would play more villains.
It was his best performance.
Dude, it was incredible.
It was his... In my opinion, that movie makes me wish...
All that shit, you got to roll with.
I really hope at some point we see Tom Cruise as an MCU villain. That would be so epic.
Also, shout out to Shadow of the Sun by Audioslave, because that musical moment in the movie is just fantastic, too.
Yes. All right. So, we got a good one going on. That growl from Corrupted System means he's ready to get his teeth wet. Number 4.
Absolutely. My number 4 is a remake, which I definitely have. The franchise must be honored. However, this remake was incredible. It might not be what you're thinking, but I don't know. You know how this goes. We never know. But this was a badass movie. Actually, when I saw this, I didn't go see it in theaters, and I'm pissed off that I didn't go see it in theaters because I should have. I owed it to myself to see it there. I even got the video game based on it, and this video game is one of the best movie-based video games that I've ever played. The replayability is ridiculous, and it's Mad Max Fury Road. Wow. This movie was badass to me. I don't know if both of you seen it. I feel like Nate has seen it. I don't know if you've seen it, BK. All right,
I haven't seen any of the other Mad Maxes other than this one.
Oh, really?
See,
you don't need to.
Yeah, I've seen.
You don't need to. There is no this. The second it starts, it just doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. It's one of those movies, and I'm like, oh, this is how we're doing it, and you can't help it. It's a great action movie, and it was tough just to put it at 4, but That's where I'm coming in. Shout out to Tom Hardy once again, proving that he is a man's man and the true Bronson, even though he did play Bronson.
The Player Way.
Indeed.
Thanks, man.
My number 4. It is not the 4th film in this series, but it is the most. To me, it was the most important film in this franchise, and it really. No.
Oh, it's not.
That's a fantasy film, dude. In my opinion.
Oh, you won't get.
In my opinion,
yeah.
There's action in Star Wars, but they don't. None of those belong in a top 5.
Gotcha.
It's all CGI stuff. I mean, yeah. Anyway, in my opinion, when you find out Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith, it's all like not even him doing it. You can't put. That tells you what.
Can't put it up there.
Exactly. This film, it reinvigorated the series, and it brought in actors and characters into the franchise that you never thought could even work in it.
Oh,
and it redefined what the series was all about. And my number 4 is Fast 5.
I didn't win.
Fast 5. Fast 5 is when Hobbs came in, and it changed the whole shit. When The Rock showed up, it was like when the Fire Nation came, baby. It was like, then the Fire Nation showed up.
Dude, that whole scene of the mirrored Stingray going off the bridge, and you just see him and Paul Walker and...
Yes.
Bro.
Fast and Furious 1, 2, 3, and 4. All of 4 of those films are so disjointed as like a collective. And when
I can't even include Tokyo Drift.
Yeah, and when Fast 5 showed up, that was like... Now we're going on a whole new run. They pretty much restarted the franchise at 5.
Fast and Furious is where they kind of restarted, but Fast 5
is the one. That's it. Yeah, that's the one. Fast 5 is like, you could not watch anything before that. You can watch 1, then 5, and then everything else. I mean, so yeah, Fast 5, in my opinion, is the best Fast and Furious film, in my opinion. Just because of what it did. So, there you go. Even though Charlize Theron, she did a pretty good job and when she showed up as well. All right.
Maybe we'll get to talk about her.
Number 3.
My number 3.
Go.
Nowadays, it's kind of hard to remember that 20 years ago, this guy was an action star, and it's The Rock with Nicolas Cage and Sean Connery. Nicolas Cage was on top of the world 20 years ago, and I don't care who you are. The Rock made Michael Bay into an action movie director. Fuck Bad Boys. The Rock was the shit, and still to this day, I love it. Yeah,
and The Rock signified how something that was based on reality but goes in a completely different direction could.
Ed Harris.
If that movie had been made maybe 5 years later, the prologue would say inspired by a true story, because they would have based it on Alcatraz. You know what I'm saying? They were, it was based on this idea. So yeah, absolutely. The Rock was great. Anytime you can make Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage look like action stars, you've done a great job.
Hey, Nick was, man, Con Air,
bro.
Like, man, Nick was flying high back then. Con Air, do you remember?
Con Air was after
Vegas?
The Rock, and yeah,
I know. You remember that plane like landing in Vegas, man? Like that happened. That was
Con Air only worked because The Rock came out. Like The Rock, it was riding off the coattails of The Rock for sure.
He almost got Superman back in the 90s.
Yes, he did. Because of
these
The Rock.
movies. But turns out he got Superman anyway, I guess, didn't he?
He sure did.
Took him a little longer.
Exactly. All right. Derek, you're next. Number 3.
My number 3 is a wonderful piggyback to your number 4, because as I'm going to say, the franchise was reborn, and it was properly reborn, but after the most recent one was a great action movie, down to an actual submarine busting out of the ice, and where you have a grown man blocking a torpedo with a car door. Fate of the Furious is my number 3. Incredible action movie. Just down to the whole, when they were all trying to stop Dom, and his car was just roaring with grappling hooks, and they're like, try 5,000 horsepower. Yes! Like, Just
that film
incredible.
showed you how
Incredible.
you could have so much in a trailer and still surprise people. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Derreck seems he say he can't hear us. I think he's having some technical difficulties over there.
It's probably because the gods were pissed that he picked Fate of the Furious.
Can you hear us now, Derreck? Nope. I think his batteries might have died on his headphones, is what I think happened. All right, so we're going to keep moving on, and we'll come back to him in just a little bit, unless he interrupts as I'm about to name mine. Next up, for me, my number 3 is harkening back to the essence of what action films are all about. I believe there is no future without looking to the past, and this film is one of those action films that any man, any testosterone-loving, fueled man, when this comes on television, if you're out of town working and it comes on TNT in the middle of the night, you're going to watch it. If you're at home on a Saturday afternoon and it's like part way through the film, you're going to watch at least some of it, okay? And that is Jean-Claude Van Damme, Bloodsport. Bloodsport is one of those classic tournament films that is all about giving you what you need to make sure that a film franchise gives, an action film gives you what you want.
God, I forgot all about Jean-Claude.
Dude,
actually.
Bloodsport, man. Bloodsport was good, dude. When he takes the aspirin and grinds it up and, like, throws it in dude's eyes, and he's like, he's looking all around, and he has to, like, close his eyes and fight invisible. That's it, dude. That's it. And it goes back to earlier in the film when he's, like, learning his martial arts and everything. That's what it's all about, man. I
I mean, he had a lot of movies. Bloodsport, Kickboxer, Time Cop.
Time Cop was good.
Time Cop.
Cop, what made Time Cop decent, it didn't age well. I'll say that. No. It didn't age well
A lot of his movies haven't.
Yeah. Bloodsport, to me, Bloodsport and The Quest are the only 2 films of his, in my opinion, that you can rewatch again. The Quest, because it went even further back in time. And it goes back to that tournament formula. If you got a good martial arts tournament formula that plays upon prejudices that people have about other cultures, it works, especially in America. But Bloodsport, it was the whole idea of the kumite, and it was inspired by true events. Frank Dukes, the character in that film, is a real guy, and supposedly all that actually happened to a certain extent. So that was the beginning of inspired by true events. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, good pull.
Thank you. Is Derreck back
I would
on
have never
yet?
have thought to go to Jean-Claude, no.
Let's see. Okay. Well, let's just go on to your number 2 then.
My number 2 is the most... No, actually, it wasn't the most recent on my list, but I absolutely love this movie. I think it's Chris Nolan at his finest outside of Batman movies, and it's Inception. I think.
Wow. So you went Inception with an action film. It worked.
Well, it is. I mean,
is.
There's a lot of action sequences in it, and
car chases, heist,
and the twirling one with Jonathan Gordon-Levitt, the twirling hallway. Knowing he actually built a rotating hallway for them to film and wasn't CGI.
Practical effects.
I like that. Makes me love it even more.
I like that.
It introduced us to Tom Hardy.
Yes. If you didn't already know about him, you knew about him after this film.
I would argue that not very many people probably did know about him.
Exactly. Ken Watanabe, he's a solid actor.
Yeah.
Solid acting all the way around with that one.
Mm-hmm.
I would even say that without Inception, Doctor Strange wouldn't have been possible. There's so many things in Doctor Strange that are harkening back to Inception. Like, even down to the mirror world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, even to how, like, the world is animated, you can tell they took that specifically. Even the soundtrack of Doctor Strange, in certain cases, sounds like Inception. So, that kind of... Inception, to me, goes to the same kind of place that The Matrix does is it's not so much with the film. The film itself is a joy to watch, but it also what it did for film after that, and the ideas were very original that were presented there. So yeah, that's awesome. That's pretty solid in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see if Derreck is back yet.
He is alive and in color.
Good. All right. Here's what you missed so far. After your number three, my number three was Bloodsport. Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Jean-Claude. All right.
Aspirin scene. The
Nice.
Kumite.
Kick it like a kumite. Hey.
Well, yeah, and down to the fact that of all of probably it'll be the only one on this list that the lead character is a person who actually did live, who was living at the time the film came out. Frank Dukes, that character is a real man, and he supposedly saw all this happen. The Kumite was a real thing that was going on. So that whole inspired by true events, that was like one of the first of its kind like that.
Legit.
Yeah. Along with Texas Chainsaw Massacre also did that later on as well. And then Nate came around with his number 2, which was
Inception.
Beautiful.
Exactly. And now
I even debated if I could put that on there. So, but my number 2 is a movie in which I quote probably once a week. It's a movie that is a great action movie. Even though I may not be huge on this particular director, he does know how to make these type of action movies. And it's Bad Boys 2. That movie is an action-packed movie. Just the opening 14 minutes of that movie just leads all the way up to a Ferrari freaking driving down, dodging boats on a highway. There's a Hummer driving through drug shanties. It's an action-packed movie.
Now,
the whole shootout at the house before it even
in my opinion, I think Bad Boys is Michael Bay's best. I would
argue that it'd be The Rock.
I know you would, but Bad Boys.
Honestly, I think any of his movies outside, like the Transformers movies, to me, after number 1, just felt like he's collecting a paycheck, you know? His other movies like Pain and Gain, The Rock, 13 Hours, Bad Boys 1 and 2, they're all great movies. He's a good director, yeah.
Like Pain and Gain, when they have to freeze in the middle of the film and yes, this is still it's all still real actually happened. And they have to wow, this still all really happened. That's crazy. So the only thing with Pain and Gain is they really took a lot of liberties with what the characters looked like. So that was the only problem I had is when I actually saw the documentary, they took a lot of liberties with the film. It all happened, but not exactly the way it happened. You know what I'm saying? They stylized it big time to make it look better. But anyway, shout out to Derreck. That's pretty good. So I guess we're on to my number 2, right?
Yes, sir.
My number 2, in my opinion, really in today's day and age, after watching Tomb Raider and other films like it as of late, I recently went back and watched this film because I knew I was going to end up on my action list, and I talked about it, and I had to watch it just to make sure, and it holds up. It has not aged. Of all of the Marvel films that have come out, it probably has aged the best thus far. It still holds up, and it is number 2, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. And it's the opening scene, on your left, on your left. It goes back to this guy is going to be how I'm going to win at the end of this. Even though the Falcon is not nearly as powerful, they do a much better with showing how a sidekick should work. Don't make him feel like a sidekick, but show him why he's part of the team. Rhodey, you don't understand why he's even around. He's there because people expect him to be. But when he mattered the most would have been in the first Iron Man film when they chose, not this time. No, it should have been that time. Then he would have made more sense. And
Ironmonger wouldn't have damn near killed him.
Exactly. And Falcon does.
And it turned out never for Terrence Howard. Never.
Exactly. And when you go back and watch, Falcon holds his part up, dude. He actually does an amazing job as a sidekick.
He's a good Avenger. Shit.
He does a great
sidekick,
job,
man.
Like,
He's an Avenger.
Like, even down to, like, you're like, why not just use a drone? He shows you why. He shows you what he brings to the table, and it's great. So that film works great. Very much action-y. Got a little sci-fi action into it, but it stays more toward the actual analog action. And it's even down to the analog solutions they come up with overcome the digital. And, like, that's all great. And there, it even down to Zola, he is an analog system that overcomes digital things, and therefore their solutions at the end, it kind of gives you an understanding of, like, in a digital age, there are still some basic bone and sinew crashing that can happen that really brings you out. So yeah, so that's my number 2. I love that film. Number 1, Nate.
This, like my comedy list, this was always number 1 for me.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to figure out your top 4.
Figuring out the bottom 4, yeah. And this movie came out 17 years ago, and I still think it holds precedent as the bar of what an action movie should be. It's Terminator 2: Judgment Day.
Wow. We're about to go to some standards. I hope Derreck doesn't let us down.
Words can't really explain how much I love this movie. I've loved it ever since the first time I saw it when I was, a wee little lad, 6 years old.
You didn't disappoint.
And honestly, it really still to this day holds up. I watch it probably once a year. The T-1000 is just as menacing as he was the first time I saw him. You had a woman as a hero before the whole Wonder Woman craze and all this shit. Like, Sarah Connor was a badass.
She was,
Linda Hamilton
dude.
does a fucking badass
They need to
job.
go back and do a case study on Linda Hamilton. Linda Hamilton was a better Lara Croft than Lara Croft has been to date. Like, that's what Lara Croft needs to be like. Stop trying to be cute. Stop trying to scream every time something happens. You got to be a little butch. You want to hang out with the dudes, you got to be like a dude. Let's just get it going.
Yeah. And you play the movie to Arnold's acting strengths, which is not too much dialogue.
Yes.
Just look menacing. You got your sunglasses.
Yeah.
You don't even need to do acting with your eyes. That when he's riding down the L.A. River on the motorcycle and cocking a shotgun with one hand. I mean, goddamn, it is just such a fun fucking movie.
And covering up the fact that despite him being an athlete, being a bodybuilder athlete, he was very awkward in terms of his movements.
Yeah.
So they minimalized his movements and made him more robotic, and then made that robotic aspect part of the character. Yeah, I agree. And then had somebody who was much better Terminator.
And one hell of a tearjerker for an ending. Made me fall in love with a robot.
Dude.
It's like
putting black people in the center of the film, making them major characters. I'm telling you, dude, that scene when they're at the business after hours, and that man, I mean, that to me, you can actually look at that scene and then take if you go to X1, the original X-Men film, where there's like the train station fight, there's a lot of notes from Terminator, from T2, in that same scene, even down to how police pull up to like buildings in other films. You could tell they pulled straight from that.
Yeah.
Derreck.
My number 1, you're going to have to deal with a quote from it before I say it, but the quote shall answer your questions if you're willing to participate in this. And the quote goes such as this: "And shepherds we shall be for thee, my Lord, for thee."
Really?
Hell yeah.
Wow.
Hell yeah.
Number 1 though?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Number 1 though?
Wow.
Yes.
That surprises me too.
These
Number
brothers,
1,
he
though.
ripped a
this
toilet
movie
out.
does not hold up at
What other
all
movie have you
whatsoever.
seen somebody handcuffed to a toilet that they ripped out and jumped 4 stories to beat a bad guy down? Did you forget those shootout scenes and they were prepared to get that DNA off? Hell yeah. Boondock Saints, badass movie. Badass action movie. And of course, like I said, these are all our individual movies. Like,
True.
I didn't bag on any on Terminator, but but I like Terminator. But I
That's because it's Terminator fucking 2 Judgment Day.
Terminator 2 Judgment Day and Boondocks
are different movies. Yeah,
there's an argument there to be had.
But
and I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm just gonna leave it at that.
But you know,
starring fucking Powder.
Yes,
but I will
Powder
say
Carol from The Walking Dead.
But I will say it's an honor. It's a standard. It's an action standard. You didn't let me down because there's other ways you could have gone with that.
Absolutely.
So I definitely respect it. And there's a lot of people who are listening to this. Nick Dunn is one of them who's going to be listening to us. It is around St. Patrick's Day too. Ian Robert Parsons listened to this. He agrees with Derek. I know he does. There's a lot of people who agree with Derek, so that's the reason why I'm gonna let him have that one.
I mean,
and just like I know there's a lot of people that agree with Derek, I know Jonathan Barron, you're gonna love the fact that I named this as my number one. And coming in at number one from BK, doing his list,
The Player Way,
is going to be a film that I believe is the essence of what an action film is about. One man, one mission. He had one chance, and his one chance was to fight.
John Wick.
It's not about love. It's not about passion. It's not about desire. It's just about one man having to face the man and coming out on top. My number
Bad
one.
Company starring Chris Rock
No.
and Anthony Hopkins.
Number one is First Blood.
Fair enough.
And if you don't know what First Blood is, Rambo 1.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right. Cool.
So no comments on. All right. I'll see how y'all do.
I haven't seen it in years. I think I enjoyed
Derek, we
Rambo
can't hear
2
you.
more than I enjoyed Rambo 1. Rambo in Vietnam.
Derek, we
And then
can't hear
Rambo
you.
3.
You can't hear me?
Now we can hear
now
you.
we
Yeah,
can.
we can.
I hadn't said anything. That's probably why you didn't hear me.
Oh, okay. All right.
But with my other computer doing its restarting, it was messing with my Bluetooth headphones this whole time. And once it's actually getting close to the update, it was disconnecting and reconnecting. So that's why I've been kind of out of pocket apologizing for that unintentional corrupting of the system. But that's what's been going on. So right as you were about to say your number one, it went back out again. So I had to fight with this one and just close it and then get over here. Now, him saying he hadn't seen it in years, so I still didn't even hear your number one.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay. It was First Blood.
Which I gathered when Nate was talking about that, and I was like, oh, First Blood, nice. So mistakenly, everyone still calls it Rambo, but it's not Rambo. It's First Blood. Badass choice, and it holds up as an action movie. Absolutely, as an action movie.
Well, it's the essence of what an action film is supposed to be about.
One man against the world.
It's literally
one bed.
You can make an argument. It's like the first action film. Like everything else before that.
First of all, Bullet existed. Gone in 60 Seconds existed before First Blood.
And all those made your list, right?
No, but I wouldn't put First Blood on there.
Yeah.
I do have to do my states. Absolutely.
2002 was a good year for action. I'll tell you that.
Not as good as 1984, but
I'm just saying nothing before that is.
Or
obviously
1976.
Nobody else made any notes about. No one else made anything notes about that. Like, you could even make an argument about. There's so many films that we've named without First Blood you wouldn't have. I mean, that's Rambo. Think about what Rambo meant to people.
Like war movies, we wouldn't have had war movies, or like what?
One man versus a whole army, a one man army movie. I mean, you wouldn't have Predator without First Blood.
Maybe I don't know.
Oh, I should have made Predator an honorable
That's what I'm saying,
mention.
dude.
That was a
That's
good
what I'm
movie,
saying, dude.
actually.
Predators.
Yeah, but I probably like Predator more than I like First Blood.
Yeah, but I mean, still, man, it's the foundation, bro. It's the foundation. So anyway, well, this was awesome.
Interesting picks. I got thrown off with the Boondock Saints, honestly. That one fucked with me.
I remember how
Fair
it was
enough.
when I watched it, just being amazed at seeing these two brothers on screen, just shooting. Just that whole scene when they popped like the whole room and just in perfect unison. It was just cool. It was just a cool movie. It was just a cool action movie. And then these guys, I mean, now there was a unnecessary sequel, as I shall not mention.
I was just about to say that. Honestly, what kind of ruined Boondock Saints for me was the sequel. They just didn't need to go back to the well for that one. And what's his name? Sean. What's his name?
Sean William Scott Flaherty. I said William Scott for a second.
Is that
Patrick
Powder?
name?
Yeah,
Sean
Powder.
No, it's like Sean Patrick Flannery.
Yeah, Sean Patrick
Flannery.
Flannery.
Sorry.
What happened to his career after that kind of deflated Boondock Saints for me as well, because at least as far as the movie still holds up. I'm just saying, as far as it making a top list or something like that, like that film. When I think about that film, I think about like different Boston films and things like that, and I look at The Departed. Like, I was really into that until The Departed came out, and then when The Departed came out, I was like, oh, this is it right here. Like where they were trying to get to in Boondock Saints, that's where they should have ended up with. They should have went toward The Departed with their sequel. That would have been really cool. And honestly, like I said, it was a tough decision, honestly, just because there's Fate of the Furious is a cooler action movie. However, like always, of course, like the stuff that's come out with
you wouldn't have gone to Fate of the Furious if Boondock Saints.
Exactly, you get what I'm saying. You know what I'm talking.
We get it.
But then again, like if we're going like Rambo First Blood '82, like you're saying, then
I love how he's making fun of you when he's saying that.
That was obvious.
What he said is true, though. What he's saying is 100% true.
Like if we're gonna do that, then we have to go all the way back to like how far back are we? Like it has to stop somewhere. Just like with people talking about how they want to take down Confederate statues, it has to stop somewhere. But like I can't go all the way back to the '60s and be like, oh well, or I can't give Smokey and the Bandit precedence over Fate of the Furious. Fate of the Furious is way better than Smokey and the Bandit. But for me personally, I really appreciated this. And like I said,
what Boondock Saints did for action is it showed that action can be done on a low budget with brilliant writing and choreography. Period. Mm-hmm. Regardless of what you want to say about it, that's a badass fucking movie, and it's a straight testosterone film done
the player way.
We're going to wrap that up just like that. All right. So, anything coming up that we should be paying attention to?
Lots.
No.
Lots.
Well,
Nate,
Death Wish is still in theaters. If you haven't seen it.
Lord.
Came out 3 weeks ago.
You guys are on such high energy this episode. Got technical difficulties on one and Mr. Personality on the second. Ladies and gentlemen and everyone in between, with all due respect, this is your resident podcast DJ. DJ keeping high energy.
The player way.
Single-handedly. With my co-captains, Derreck.
That's me corrupted the system. What we got next week? What's our list for next week? Are we going?
That's what I just asked you guys, so y'all figure it out.
Oh well, action.
Well,
we had one,
got,
and then
like
action,
drama or sci-fi.
Yeah, we
left.
had one.
Yeah.
So what list do you guys want to do next week?
Let's see. We had talked about. I mean, we can. Nothing. I don't want to do a list at all.
All right, we'll talk about it, and you guys will see it on our next episode. So shout out to co-captains Derreck and Nate. All right. Getting the fuck out of here. See y'all next week. Thanks for listening to the Player Way podcast. Recorded in a single take from Los Angeles, California, Dallas, Texas, and Atlanta, Georgia, by Nathan Peterson, Derek Lewis, and BK Jackson.
And I'm Darren Marlar, the majestic voice of the Player Way podcast.
Our opening theme is titled Bound by Ricky Remedy, courtesy of Elysian Records. And our closing theme is titled Coconut King Diaries by Xander, spelled Zahnder. You can find this music by both Ricky Remedy and Xander, and many more tracks on SoundCloud. And remember, no matter what choices you make or paths you follow, just make sure you do it
the player way.
See you next week.